Allison Pamela Bonilla Vasquez was born on November 7, 2001, in Cartago, Costa Rica. As the only child in the family, Allison lived with her mother, Yendri Vasquez. However, Yendri was not the only one involved in raising Allison. The girl's grandparents, Ramon and Marjorie, as well as her aunt Zamara, often helped Yendri. According to Yendri, Allison's father abandoned them immediately after her birth. He was in a relationship with another woman who was pregnant at the time. He left his wife and daughter to be with her, not wanting to be a part of Allison's life. Yendri said that he only asked to meet his daughter once. At that time, he had leukemia, and it was the only reason she allowed him to meet Allison. His second family did not even know about Allison's existence until almost the entire country learned about her disappearance. Allison was very close to her mother. She considered Yendri both a mom and a dad. It may seem strange, but she always gave her mother gifts on Father's Day. Their relationship was much closer than that between a mother and daughter. They were best friends who did everything together. Allison could tell Yendri absolutely everything without fear of being misunderstood or judged. Although Allison had a large family and no father, she did not feel lonely or abandoned. She enjoyed spending time with her family and going to church every Sunday. Relatives described Allison as a very kind, sociable, and friendly girl. In photographs, she always looked happy, with not the slightest hint of sadness in her eyes. Allison had always dreamed of working in the modeling business. She dropped out of 8th grade to attend makeup courses because combining school with makeup classes seemed too difficult. Allison did not want to waste time on an education that could not help her achieve her goals. Instead, she began looking for work to help her mother pay the bills. Every time Allison sent her resume, no one called her back. Yendri saw that her daughter was very depressed by this. Knowing that Allison was not suitable for any job due to her incomplete education, Yendri advised her to attend evening school. Therefore, at the age of 18, Allison enrolled in the Liceo Enrique Guerre Science School, located a few miles from her home. During her schooling, she received a certificate in pastry courses and began baking cakes. The cakes and other desserts prepared by Allison were simply delightful. All the neighbors were delighted with her cakes, so it became a good way for her to earn money. Allison was in a romantic relationship with Harold Segura Solana, who lived in Cachi. Cachi is a district of the canton of Paraíso, in the province of Cartago, Costa Rica. Allison usually spent the first half of the day at home with her mother. Later, she would meet with Harold, and then, at 6 o'clock in the evening, she would go to evening school. Therefore, she always returned home quite late, most often by bus. The path from the bus stop to her house ran through a rather dangerous place. It was a road with a lot of vegetation and almost no light or people, so Allison always informed her mother about changes in her location. Sometimes Yendri would even meet her at the bus stop or halfway to the bridge. On March 4, 2020, Allison went to her mother's beauty salon to get a manicure and chat with her. After that, she visited her friend Paula, who attended school with her. They spent about 15 minutes at Paula's house and then went to school together. They arrived there around 6 p.m. and parted ways, as they were taking different courses. After spending about 15 minutes in an empty classroom, Allison realized that classes at the school had been canceled for that day. She decided that the best way to continue the evening was to visit her aunt, who lived not far from the school. Her aunt was not at home, so Allison decided to spend time with her boyfriend Harold before heading home. However, he was not at home either. His mother said that he was at work and should be back soon, inviting Allison to wait at the house. When Harold returned, they had a big family dinner, chatting on various topics and discussing plans. After some time, Harold excused himself and left, saying he would be back soon. Around 8:15 p.m., Allison left Harold's house without waiting for his return. This moment marked the beginning of a series of events that would soon become known throughout the country. Harold returned home about 5 minutes later, and seeing that Allison had left, began texting her. He asked where she was and offered to drive her home on his motorcycle. Allison immediately replied that she was already at the bus stop, so there was no need to worry. While waiting for the bus, Allison texted her friend Paula, asking if her cousin could take her home on his bicycle. He refused, stating that his bicycle was professional and not suitable for two people. It remains unclear why she did not ask her boyfriend for help. Perhaps she was angry with him or did not want to bother him. As a result, Allison went home by bus. She got off the bus around 8:43 p.m. Her house was about a mile from the stop. Allison asked her mother to meet her as she had a bad feeling and was scared. At 8:45, she texted her boyfriend and mother, saying that two suspicious men were following her. They had gotten off the bus at the same stop as her, so she decided to run home to get away from them. The road Allison was going to run along was quite dangerous, with almost no light and people rarely using it. There was only one surveillance camera. It captured a blurry spot, which was supposedly Allison. When Yendri arrived at the bridge half a mile from home to meet her daughter, she did not find her. She tried to stay calm, thinking that Allison might have returned to the bus stop as a precaution. But she did not find her daughter there either. Then she thought that Allison might not have noticed her and was already at home. However, when Yendri returned home, she found the house empty. Yendri began calling her daughter's family and friends, asking if they knew where Allison might be and inviting them to join the search. About 30 minutes later, Harold woke up from a phone call from Allison's aunt. She told him that Allison was missing. He immediately started calling her, but it was all in vain. Her phone was unavailable. Text messages on WhatsApp also did not go through. 2 days later, Allison Bonilla was declared missing after her mother contacted the police. They began the search. Fortunately, Yendri knew what her daughter was wearing, as Allison had asked her to take a picture of her in that outfit earlier. At the beginning of the investigation, the police checked every location from the bus stop to Allison's house. They also searched various places near the city, including Lake Cachi and the dam of the hydroelectric power plant of the same name. On March 5, 2020, the police found the first clue: Allison's glasses. They were lying in the grass a mile from her house, but Allison seemed to have vanished into thin air. 8 days later, they found Allison Bonilla's documents on a coffee plantation. This was strange, as they had searched the entire area many times before. Another suspicious fact was that her ID was in too convenient a place to be easily noticed. There was no dirt on it, as if someone had deliberately placed it there to mislead the investigation or conceal some details. 15 days after Allison went missing, her father called. Instead of offering his help, he said that Allison had disappeared because she was too beautiful. Yendri did not expect such heartless words and immediately hung up. She could not believe what she had just heard. Some time passed, and Allison's family, the police, and volunteers continued their tireless search for her. Every Sunday, they would go out on the street and hand out flyers with Allison's photo. Once, they decided to paint footprints on the street, depicting Allison's steps from the crosswalk to the bridge where she was believed to have disappeared. They painted various inscriptions, and one of them read, "Allison, we are waiting for you." In addition, they hung posters on the poles next to the road so that passers-by could notice it. At the same time, the police received an important lead. A man came to the police station and said that he knew Allison and saw her the night she disappeared. According to him, on March 4th, around 8:30 p.m., he left the house on his motorcycle to pick someone up. While he was driving, he saw Allison, as well as a burgundy two-door BMW that had stopped next to her. He said that he then turned around to see what was happening. He realized who the car belonged to. It was his cousin's BMW. It had bright yellow headlights, a distinctive feature of this car. Additionally, another man also told the police that he had seen the same BMW that evening, not far from where Allison had disappeared. The BMW belonged to 28-year-old Nelson Sanchez Ureña, known among the locals as Sukia, as residents said he was a member of a local gang. As it turned out, Nelson was acquainted with Allison, Their families had known each other for a very long time, and at one point, they even lived in the same neighborhood. Allison's mother later said that she had only interacted with him once. It was more of a neighborly relationship than a friendly one. Once, Nelson offered to drive Allison and her cousin home, and she agreed, as it was light out. She was not alone, and considered him a decent person. On March 2nd, 2020, one day before Allison's disappearance, Nelson sent her a message on Facebook, asking her to answer a few questions. On the advice of her cousin, Allison agreed. Nelson then asked her how she felt about him. The girl was puzzled, as she did not understand the meaning of such a question. They were not friends, and barely knew each other. When Allison asked Nelson why he was asking about this, he replied that he just wanted to know what she thought of him. Allison answered that he did not arouse any aversion in her, assuring him that everything was fine between them. Nelson thanked her and said goodbye. On March 26, 2020, detectives obtained a warrant to search Nelson Sanchez's house and confiscate his car, mobile phone, and computer. There were several very disturbing messages on his phone. Many photographs depicting mistreatment of women were saved there. During the search of his car, the police noted the perfect cleanliness. As it turned out, someone had cleaned the carpet and seats with polish. However, there were no floor mats on the driver's side or in the trunk. Police found hair and blood drops on the trunk lid and sent them to a laboratory for analysis. After completing a visual inspection of the vehicle, the police conducted a check with a service dog. It detected possible traces of blood on the two front seats and in the trunk of the car. A luminol test confirmed this. Blood traces that the owner had tried to destroy using cleaning agents were found in many places in the vehicle. While detectives waited for results from the lab, Nelson Sanchez was free but under surveillance. They monitored his every move to ensure he did not leave the city or country. Yendry insisted that investigators arrest him, but the police did not yet have grounds for this, so he remained free for several months. Yendry thought that someone had kidnapped Allison to later demand a ransom for her return. She tried to stay calm and not panic, hoping that her daughter was still alive. The woman left Allison's room untouched. She did not make the bed or move anything. The mother also bought gifts for her daughter in case she returned home. On September 2nd, 2020, detectives finally received lab results confirming that the hair and blood found in Nelson Sanchez's car belonged to Allison. The police arrested him the same day. Later, Sanchez's ex-girlfriend told police that he had never caused her physical harm, but there was a lot of moral pressure in their relationship. He did not allow her to communicate with friends or use the internet. According to her, he only wanted an intimate relationship with her. Nelson's former boss said that he was irresponsible in his work and once even stole about $1,000. In addition, they interviewed his landlord, who said that one of Sanchez's ex-girlfriends had left him because she was tired of paying his bills. She called him a very spoiled person. On September 4th, Nelson Sanchez confessed to what he had done to Allison Bonilla. According to him, on the night Allison disappeared, he was driving by and saw her walking alone on the empty road. He decided to take advantage of the fact that it was late at night. Nelson realized that Allison would not be afraid to get into his car because she knew him. He offered to drive her, and she agreed and got into the car. But instead of driving home, he turned the other way and took her to a coffee plantation where he forced her out of the vehicle. Nelson hit her so hard that her glasses flew off and she almost lost consciousness. After that, he took her to the nearest abandoned house, where he raped her and then brutally beat her. Then, Sanchez took her to the front seat of his car to tie her hands with some fabric or tape. Afterward, he put her in the trunk and took her to a dump in San Jeronimo de Naranjo, where he threw Allison off a cliff into a pile of garbage. He explained his actions by consuming too many illegal substances. He said that he was under their strong influence. He also explained that he was obsessed with Allison. According to him, when he saw her that evening, he realized that it was the most opportune moment to act out his indecent fantasies. As is often the case in such stories, Nelson Sanchez later recanted his confession, stating that the police had pressured him. But there was enough evidence against him to press charges. The maximum sentence he faced was 35 years. Early in the morning on September 4th, a search party went to the dump to find Allison's body. But since the area was too vast and difficult to access, finding her remains was not an easy task. Moreover, 6 months had passed since her disappearance. Just 25 days after Sanchez's confession, the police found human bones, vertebrae, ribs, part of the pelvis and a femur, fragments of the clothes Allison was wearing on the day of her disappearance, and one sneaker with nails inside. The police sent all this evidence for examination. Jose Francisco Arias, the suspect's lawyer, stated that the evidence could have been falsified since it was found by a group of volunteer rescuers and not by the judicial police. In addition, Arias said it was strange that the authorities discovered human remains in the area indicated by Nelson on the same day his client changed his testimony and claimed he was innocent. Rodrigo Araya, the lawyer for the Bonilla family, criticized the change in the suspect's testimony, stating that the incident was an insult to the work of the authorities. On October 5, 2022, experts confirmed that the remains found belonged to Allison Bonilla. Since the search party did not find all parts of Allison's body, forensic experts were unable to establish the exact cause of her death. However, the expert who examined the remains concluded that the numerous fractures on her body appeared after death, indicating a fall from a great height. The clothing found was torn, and bite marks were visible on the sneakers, so experts concluded that this could have been the work of animals, which is why the remains were found in different parts of the dump. Yendry was furious that the police had not listened to her and had not arrested Sanchez earlier. Maybe he would have confessed even earlier, and then Allison's body would still be intact. It was a great tragedy for the whole family. The trial of Nelson Sanchez began on July 19, 2021. One witness at the trial was Allison's boyfriend, Harold. In his statement, he said that Allison was at his house with his mother when he returned from work on the evening of March 4, 2020. At some point, he stepped away for 5 or 10 minutes. Upon returning, Harold saw that Allison had left without saying goodbye. He kept in touch with her through text messages as she returned home. When she got off the bus, she informed him that 2 men were following her. Harold insisted that she call a taxi. He said he would pay the taxi driver himself, but Allison refused twice and wrote to him that she would run home on her own. After that, he received no more messages from her. However, according to him, he only informed his mother about the situation. He did not contact Allison's mother. He explained that he did not do this because his phone battery had died, and then he fell asleep for 30 minutes. He found out that his girlfriend was missing from Allison's aunt, who called him. From that moment, according to him, he was scared and called Allison's cell phone several times, but all calls were immediately forwarded to voicemail. Messages on WhatsApp also did not go through. Harold reported that he was part of the search party for several days, but stopped searching because he had to work. If he could turn back time, he would have taken Allison home that evening, but unfortunately, nothing can be changed. On August 18, 2021, the court sentenced Nelson Sanchez to 18 years in prison for taking the life of Allison Bonilla. He could have received twice the sentence, but the judge pointed out that there was no evidence to confirm that he knew about Allison's route and time of returning home, or that he had planned to attack her. Moreover, due to the condition of Allison's remains, there was no evidence that Sanchez had forced her into sexual intimacy. Allison's family was very disappointed with the sentence. In their opinion, it was an unjust punishment. In 2022, the family's lawyer filed an appeal. The court overturned Sanchez's sentence and ordered a new trial. On September 28, 2023, the court sentenced Nelson Sanchez to 35 years in prison. Allison's family's lawyer noted that Sanchez had acted wildly, cowardly, and inhumanely, taking advantage of his superiority and the victim's trust. In the court's opinion, Nelson's actions were premeditated. Allison had known Sanchez for several years, so he used this to commit the crime. Sanchez showed no remorse, and the criminal court took this into account. Despite being more severe, the family was satisfied with the new sentence, which finally closed this chapter in their lives, putting an end to the nightmare that had lasted more than 3 years. Allison's family erected a cross and laid flowers where she was found. They made a kind of small altar for her with her photograph and a statue of the Virgin Mary. The Allison Bonilla case had a strong impact on the Costa Rican media and social networks, even provoking several marches in memory of the young woman and other women who had previously suffered under similar circumstances.